Do I have cricket? Did you use cricket? Mm-mm. I went with Fred.
I think Fred did, and I don't know.
No, we took the green band.
It's very yesterday.
Good morning. There we go. Just as a means of introduction, I'm Walter Raven, and it's my pleasure to serve as the Commissioner of the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. Got a few people that I want to recognize and introduce to you this morning. We are honored to have Kate Karwacki with us, the Chairman of the County Commission. And we also have Davis Poole, also a County Commissioner here in McIntosh with us. If you look across the table here, we have Mr. Ron Grosvenor with us. Thank you for being with us. And then joining me from DNR today, we have Deputy Commissioners Thomas Bernard and Trevor Santos. We have our Coastal Resources Division Director Doug Heyman with us. I have our Chief of Staff with us today, Taylor Brown Fisher. And then our Parks and Historic Sites Division Director, Andy Johnson. And then lastly, our Wildlife Resources Division Director, Ted Will, is with us today as well. First of all, on behalf of the Georgia Department of Natural Resources, I want to thank you for taking your time to be here. I know it takes a lot of effort to come to a meeting here on the island for some of us. Some of you are blessed to live here full time. And I'll be the first to tell you that I'm very jealous of you being able to do that. Before we get into the presentation, I'm very hopeful that today's meeting can be both productive and the fact that we're having a 2-hour meeting, we need it to be very efficient as well. I would say that, I met with you almost to the dates, about a year ago, and we look forward to sharing some of the updates from last year's meeting and look forward to hearing your comments later on. Just as a means of the program, and this will be very informal, but for our agenda, you're going to hear updates from state park, historic sites. Then you'll hear an update from Ted Will, and then lastly, I'll give you a few updates myself. And then following these departmental updates, we're going to open the floor so that you can comment to us so that we can hear your concern. We recognize there are many opinions, and those thoughts will be taken seriously as we work to better Sapelo Island for all residents. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Angie Johnson for our park update.
Well, good morning. Morning. I'm sure just a little bit about our staff. Staff that we have there. Kate Hart is our manager. Kate Hart is our new manager. He started about a year ago, almost a year ago. He was with Missouri State Parks, so he was bringing you there for about, yeah, so was with the wildlife and has a restaurant and winery, so he has some good, parks experience. I'll stand up, how about that? So Kay Harp, I'll start over again. Kay Harp is our park manager at Brentwood Mansion. He has been, with us for about a year now. Kay, came to us from Missouri State Parks. He's been park ranger for about 20 years. And he also served with U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. He also on the side had his own restaurant and winery, so he's got the hospitality experience as well as the park experience. And he's been doing a great job, really proud of him. Our new assistant manager is Matthew Morrow. Matthew came from us, from South Carolina State Parks. He also worked at Mississippi State Park. And he just joined us about a month ago. He's doing a great job as well. And of course, you know, Miss Mary Bailey, she's our lead cook, and she's been with us for almost 25 years, sharing her wonderful recipes, and we're so appreciative to have her still with us. In addition to Mary, Isaiah Alston, assists her in the kitchen as well, and Isaiah came back to us, he's from Georgia, but he's been in the last state, came back, with this almost as well. Our senior ranger or our maintenance ranger is Matthew Marcotti. Matthew, actually was a Michael. He was a retiree of Georgia Pacific, in Savannah. He worked in maintenance there for 32 years and, been with us for several months. Connie Keller is our event coordinator, and she previously worked with the city of Savannah. She did a great job too. So that's who we've got on staff now. In addition to that, we're working through a number of, projects and issues, aging infrastructure issues with the mansion. There's a lot of needs, including the roof, HVAC, electrical, and that kind of thing. But we received some funding for renewals, and our engineer construction has been focusing on the efforts addressing the various roof leaks through the mansion. The priority leaks in the public spaces have been effectively addressed, and only the administrative office is the last to be corrected. Hurricane Debbie was a great test of those repairs, and they proved to be effective. Upon completing the work required to address the remaining leaks associated with the administrative space, we will begin to planning and engineering for improvements needed for the mechanical system, electrical, and plumbing. In addition to that, our cultural and interpretive resources unit and our Office of State Archaeology conducted a purge of panel. We decades worth of basically trapped on the uniforms and things like that, separating the good from the bad. We have some artifacts that were assessed so that they could be properly preserved. And that was a great project. Additionally, there were several furniture.
It's on just.
I'm gonna start all over. Real close, okay. Can you hear me now? All right. So additionally, there were several furniture items that were in need of care for frequent use in phase one, which included 10 pieces were reposted last year. Phase two included the couch in the library and several other chairs. Those were completed in the spring, and now we're working phase three to reupholster and then preserve that furniture. Also, chocolate plantation, we have 2 interpretive panels that are in the process of being fabricated. Those panels include information about the structures and the people who live in that area. And then landmark preservation is set to begin the preservation work to protect 2 of the structures in the category. That completes the park update. Any questions? Thank you.
Now, our over to the Director Will.
Good morning. I'll try to, typically my wife, reminds me to turn down the volume. So I might need this or might not. Hopefully everyone in the room can hear me. If you can't, just raise your hand and let me know what it's like back there. So first, I'm gonna start off with some infrastructure updates. Obviously, I'm the Director of Wildlife Resources Division. We have 4 primary sections under our division. One of those being game management section. I have David Mixon here today, the regional supervisor with game management, and also Lee Taylor. I wanted to introduce him. He's our new chief of the game management section. I hope you have an opportunity to meet them today if you have not done so already. Obviously, everyone I hope is aware of our island manager, Fred Hayes, and always appreciate Fred, what he does to serve this community. And, I call on Fred frequently. Fred's a wonderful resource for us. So as far as, the game management section generally has the primary employees, ferry and the ferry crew, and everything kind of sits under their section. We also have a fisheries management section in our division, and then our wildlife conservation section deals all non-game, all species, over 4,000 species, plant animal species in our state. So a lot happening within our division. But today, just on Sapelo alone, I want to first start off on infrastructure update. I think I shared some last year. We were starting at that point with the barge landing. That project is now complete. So we're happy to see that in place. That's an important resource for this island for sure. We also have received funding, have the permits and the design completed for the boat hoist. And they're scheduling a pre-construction meeting for that on the September 14th. So we're excited to see that project moving forward this year. Hopefully I can put a check mark on that at our meeting next year. So on September 11th, there also will be not a pre-construction meeting, but a site meeting to discuss an important project that the Nanticoke Beach Pavilion. That's certainly everyone here, I think, has a vested interest in that. And that meeting will talk about the new site placement of the pavilion and a design. And following that meeting, there will be an island-wide workshop, gather input on this important recreational structure for the island. The permitting part of this will be slow. So I mean, this won't be a fast-paced project, but we don't really have a date we can provide right now when we expect completion. But I'd say, I mean, my guess, this spring, maybe next year. Nature of the boardwalk. Obviously, we had a damage to that lower end of the boardwalk. I'm calling that phase 1 right now. TOA, as Department of Administrative Services, has agreed to provide funding to repair that. That will be phase 1, and those efforts will begin this fall. Phase 2 is the rest of that boardwalk that includes an overlook area and everything else. We are currently in kind of a design phase for that, and our signer program, the Sapelo Island National Estuary Research Reserve. I'll use signer from now on out when I mention that, but they have dedicated funding to help support that effort, and that's certainly, you know, great for school groups and everything else from an education standpoint. So we appreciate them supporting that effort to repair that boardwalk. I will mention also, Fred has worked with the Federal Emergency Management Agency's Hazard Mitigation Grant Program to get a generator, a backup, generator or a generator for the well system. So when the power goes out, we'll now have a generator in place. That's kind of open for public comment right now, that grant and what we're gonna, as it should be closing real soon, that comment period, but we'll be happy to have when the power goes out, we just experienced that over the last tropical storm, we will be able to continue to provide water. So that's a good add for the island as well. And the department, just so you know, we still do have a long-term upgrade plan for the community water system. It's just, we're trying to see, we've applied for some other grants, trying to seek funding for that enhancement as well. Ferry update. So, our division, we're working in partnership with Georgia Department of Transportation, and we're continuing to try to find the funding and final design and everything for this hybrid electric ferry. So this is a new concept. It's kind of breaking ground. We hope to have vessel drawings by the end of August. We have received a draft life cycle analysis of this project, and it also will require shoreside infrastructure improvement if we end up going down this path. So we have applied for an additional PPA grant for those shoreside structures. If we don't receive funding and notice that we might get that funding for that shoreside infrastructure, we might start looking back at a more traditional diesel ferry. But right now, we're gonna see what happens with that grant and then kind of pivot if we need to. We certainly are cognizant of how important ferry system is to the livelihood of this island. And it is time to be thinking about getting a new ferry, sure. Let's see, what else? Oh, Mark Thompson, who oversees our ferry, and he's the captain, oversees all the crew. He will be retiring this fall, so we're gonna miss Mark. And Mark, I didn't see him.
He's actually turning wrenches on the Emery.
Okay. Well, he's been with the department 20 years, and so we'll miss Mark, and he's certainly been a great asset. So if you see Mark, wish him well, and he hasn't given us a final date yet, but I'm told this fall. Fred, is that correct?
October 31st.
We have given us a date.
Yeah.
All right, the Anne Marie, 1993, I think we purchased the Anne Marie, over 30 years old. She passed her annual certification inspection by the U.S. Coast Guard. That's pretty good. They're keeping up with the boat. A lot of great work there. So congratulations to the crew for keeping that Anne Marie ready. I mean, she still services this community and meets all Coast Guard rules and regulations. The ferry crew is also working with we've had, and I've heard this. And the Katie's been out of service a little bit longer than we could have ever wanted to be. So we are now working with a shipyard out of South Carolina. I think it's the name of Stevens is the name of that shipyard. And we are hopeful, and they're committed to get any future maintenance needs, or if something comes up with the Coast Guard inspector, we can get that turnaround time to an appropriate, level from our perspective. So we are moving away from Georgia. We're not satisfied with our service there, and I think moving to South Carolina, we'll be able to get any kind of general maintenance done with Katie, get her back to the working year in a short time frame. Sapelo Signer. So Dr. Rachel Guy has recently been hired as our new manager of the Sapelo Island National Estuarine Research Reserve. So that's a real good thing for us. So, yep, we're excited about that. She's been with the department since 2016. And, so we look forward to your leadership and everything you do there. And I do want to mention also, Signer recently held a student symposium on the island in this very building. So it was great success with students and scientists presenting their projects and ongoing research on the island and restoration efforts at the airstrip. We recently saw that yesterday. Continued botanical surveys have revealed several species of concern and discoveries to enhance the value of the restoration and inform everyone here from an educational perspective of those management choices. WMA on the plane here today. Plane, no, I don't see plane. The habitat restoration work continues on the WMA. So on King Savannah Road, Blaine and his staff are currently roller chopping large blocks of understory back there at Palmetto, Gallberry, and other combustible fuels. And this will encourage some natural long leaf kind of that long leaf wiregrass and savanna type that we hope to achieve with fire and management on that across the island. Significant road work is being done on WMA to address flooding roads along the east side of the island. High rainfall amounts and extreme tidal events have increased the inundation of these roads in the winter and spring. So we certainly have seen that. And also just want to mention, we have a new Wildlife Tech 2 working with us on the WMA, and his name is Dalton Roberts. And, he does come with us with some experience already, so we're happy to have him support Blaine in his efforts on the wildlife management area. Other notes, our division did receive, one-time appropriation to help, with the Sapelo Island Heritage Authority in mulching those properties. That was discussed last year. We heard it and we were able to get some funding to help mulching. I know everyone here has probably seen some of that work ongoing. So that's a contract that we have with a vendor doing that work. And we're about 50% of the 80 acres that we have for him contracted. About 50% of that work is completed now. And so they'll continue. And we'll also be doing through that appropriation also working with that contractor, same contractor, to do some cleaning of ditches. You know, so again, that we know it's got problems. To clean those out. So we'll be working with that contractor. That was our game management section. And again, I just want to thank Lee and David and all, and Fred, and all their support for keeping me straight for all things that are happening on Sapelo. And I know I don't get down here enough to see everyone, get to know everybody, but we do appreciate your efforts. Commissioner, unless there's any questions, I'll wait. Straight those down. Is that fine? Yes, sir.
That generator for the water is gonna be a generator that will stay at water system. Stay at their generator.
Well, currently, and again, sometimes I get the terms right, it will be stored at the Azalea Field. Is that right? That we're calling that location, but it's mobile, so we can move it to there but it's gonna be, it is a mobile on a trip. I mean, we can move that generator around, but it's be dedicated for that.
That old generator now, before you get moved around different places and eventually don't work.
This one will be for the well. That's what this generator is for. That's why we're getting money. And if we used it elsewhere, it'd be kind of I think an unintended use based on how we're getting these funds and who's providing those funds. So they would have probably an issue with us using it elsewhere.
And I have a few other questions. I got a question also about, the road going up. You know, you were talking about the wildlife center there, so talk about the road going to the big y'all. Talking the road getting repaired. Another concern I got is Bush Camp Field looks like it's turning into a dump for construction site. And the parking lot in Meridian turned into a junkyard.
Well, first, I do want to apologize. I, as I typically do, I flew right by one of my bullets. And one of those critical bullets was the roads. So we have, and this is encouraging you, we met with Georgia Department of Transportation on site. They brought out their, I think essentially their asphalt engineer, or he had inspected the roads. And we have a commitment from the Department of Natural Resources or Department of Transportation to partner with us to help pave those critical areas. Certainly the one in Marsh Landing is one of those needs right now that we need some resurfacing. The good news from that inspection is the base of those roads is in good condition. So we don't have to, all we gotta do is resurface those areas. We'll be in good shape for several more years to come. Now, as far as and I get, I really don't know. I'll put it down as I guess a bullet point for me to follow up with staff here and everybody else as far as that overflow parking and, vehicle and how we manage that. I can't really speak to that knowledgeably with you right now. I mean, I'd have to kind of get with our staff and get with folks in the community to try to figure out that particular challenge for us.
When the parking at the region always the problem, and they built overflow parking lot. Overflow parking lot probably got about 13 jump cars there, DNR truck. Parking Kaufman got construction trailers parked crossways in the parking lots. The cement truck parked in the parking lot, and you just taking up spot for tourists on the island. And residents, and you just know taking up parking lot.
Well, I definitely know one thing I'm committed to do, address what is DNR. If we got stuff there, it's problematic, that will be that's on me. Now, I gotta follow up and make sure what that is and what the plan is to get it out there in short order. And, why it's there. Well, I'm committed to doing that. And then as far as, you know, if it's other residents' property, I'll need to be a little more careful, figure out how we handle that issue. I think that'd be more of
It's not resident.
okay, if it's ours, if it's ours, we gotta address that.
And if you're on the island, think about Bush Camp Field before y'all leave and look, and turning that to construction site dump. You know, like, jump from the big, head to the, that's one of the first places tourists see when they get on the island. They got a lot of old construction trash out there, and it's piling more and more out.
Well, things that come on the island that are no good to us need to go back off the island. If we're committed to try to look into that, make sure they're leaving on the barge.
And the same can be said, the same can be said, all the buses and cars all over the island that have come from people leave everywhere, there's buses everywhere wrecked. It is, ruined. It's not just those places.
What I can do today is certainly commit to looking at what's ours. Making sure we've got a plan, an exit strategy, to get our stuff off the island in an appropriate way. That's my commitment for sure. And I get it, an island, we have another island. What goes out on these islands tends to stay on islands. Getting it back off has always been a challenge, probably a lot of island operations. So anyway,
We have some questions from online. One is actually for Director Johnson. It says, will the mansion infrastructure construction bid be open, submit to the public, from the public? And how do they access that?
Repeat the question, please.
I
mean, for you, yeah.
What's the question?
Will the mansion infrastructure construction bid be open to the public, and how do you access it?
So there's a number of different things that are being addressed, so it's not one big package for all things that are needed at the mansion. The roofing project is underway right now. The scope is being built for the mechanical, and then they'll be separate for the electrical, and then separate for the plumbing. And those will be handled individually, and then they'll go out and do all of our purchasing and regulations.
And then I have another question. I think this is for Director Will. How have the on-island fisheries health been doing overall, and is there a concern for our saltwater fisheries health with more storms and global pollution?
well, that's an intriguing question. And, what's great is that, and unique to this table, that we do have a director of the coastal resources with us today who can probably, if it's recreational fishing. Again, I think what Sapelo Island National Estuary Research Reserve is doing, and the institute by which we're sitting at now, I can't think of a location that's doing more research and driving more sound management of our estuary than this footprint which we sit. I mean, there's a lot of institutional knowledge. There's a lot of history here. It's driven a lot of coastal management decisions when it comes to estuaries, and habitat is what means good fish population. So when you have good habitat, you have healthy fish populations, catch fish and you get to eat fish. So that's what I'm connected to. So I hope that helps answer that question.
All right, let's move ahead. We'll have some more time for some other questions as we move forward. Was that the full of that then? Skip any other bullet?
I can't guarantee it's ready. I hope I did.
We will all have an opportunity again. This is a conversation and a dialogue. Y'all hear me back there? Do I need this? Use it. Use this? Okay. All right, so you heard from both of our directors. DNR has been, continues to be very busy on Sapelo Island. And we're continuing to make progress on a number of the issues that was raised, not only from the meeting last year, but from the meeting prior and just from day-to-day discussions with our staff. Again, I know that many of you communicate with them on a routine basis. There are several items that I'd like to update you on, just from the input that you shared with this group last year at the meeting. One of those, I'm not sure if Ted touched on it, but we have added AEDs, what's that stand for?
AED, all that.
Everybody knows what an AED is. It's a defibrillator. Fall out, shock you back, save your life. But that has been added to the Mark Landing dock and the ferry, should we have any issues that arise. As it relates to the roads within the community, I know that was a major topic that we discussed last year. DNR continues to partner with the county on road repairs and, will continue to do so in the future. Kind of switching gears now, all of you are very aware that there was a recent meeting of the Sapelo Island Heritage Authority that took place on Wednesday, July the 17th. In the governor's absence, the governor chairs that committee, but in his absence, I was able to chair the meeting and was joined by the other authority members, including Mr. Marty Smith, who is the Georgia State Properties Officer. Ms. Francine Bailey was in attendance, as was Mr. Grosvenor, as the two Sapelo Island citizen members. One thing that I'd like just to make clear, again, I'm sure that most of you are aware, but the Sapelo Island Heritage Authority was created and is authorized by the Georgia General Assembly. While I serve as a member of the authority, as do the two community residents as outlined in the statute, that authority is separate from what the two directors just updated you on as far as the Department of Natural Resources. And I know that's sometimes a very blurry line. So a lot of the things that take place on this island are DNR. But a lot of the policies and procedures that are in place are the Sapelo Island Heritage Authority. I'll say that this was the first meeting that the authority has had since June 9th, 2021. And it was made available via Zoom to those that were unable to attend in person. I want to go through, there were a few action items that took place at that meeting, and I want to go through those just as a means of updating, making sure everyone is acutely aware of what took place during that meeting. Two of the items were related to real estate, the first being a conveyance of property in Hog Hammett in exchange for the Sapelo Island Heritage Authority granting a conveyance of property owned by the authority. This transaction resolved an ongoing encroachment issue without any loss of total acre by the owner or by the authority. The second real estate item came with a recommendation that the authority declined to exercise a right of first refusal for 0.12 acres permit, but to permit its conveyance in exchange for a forbearance agreement to extend the department's right of first refusal to any future sale of that particular piece of property. Each of these agenda items received a motion, second, and the motion was carried unanimously. Following the presentation of these items, the authority was presented with a proposed concept plan for the use of the Sapelo Island Heritage Authority lands submitted in accordance with the settlement agreement between the state of Georgia and the plaintiffs in the Drayton and versus McIntosh County et al. Lawsuit. After thoroughly reviewing the conceptual plan, I made a recommendation that the Heritage Authority give the Department of Natural Resources the authority to enter into 2 to 3 year agreements through a competitive application process for the use of hog hammock lots 18X and 19X as shown on the map titled Sapelo Island Heritage Authority Potential Cultural, Agricultural, and Educational Use Areas, which was presented to the authority for the purpose of preserving the cultural heritage, educational spaces, and or the agriculture on Sapelo Island. And with regard to the said rental agreements to exercise all of its powers conferred by law, same as if such lots were owned by the state of Georgia. This recommendation is based on the information presented in that concept plan. It was also taken into account some feedback that we had received at the Department of Natural Resources from the other 2 community meetings that we've had in the past. Both of these lots are found in what we believe to be an upland area. And as you know, you see that the ongoing mulching that's taking place within the community. We do believe that the proposed lots are very accessible from Hall Road and have an existing easement. Once mulching is completed, I feel like that the lot will be more easily viewed and accessible. Again, the authority voted unanimously in favor of this recommendation. As I mentioned previously, those who are interested will complete an application through a competitive process through DNR. Again, the authority gave DNR the ability to enter into these agreements without having to go back to another meeting. The use of the land must meet the purposes that I've set out before in cultural heritage, education, and or agriculture. These 3 action items did conclude the full agenda for that Sapelo Island Heritage Authority meeting. We do continue to receive feedback from the island residents, and we will continue to implement a number of the changes as you heard from Directors Will and Director Johnson. I'll say that as a state agency, we continue to strive to improve the communications with the island residents here and the property owner on Sapelo Island. Following last year's community meeting, we put together a detailed response on a number of issues raised at that meeting. And if you all recall, we shared that letter with you within 30 days that I committed to sitting on the other side of the aisle. Earlier this year, after receiving emails concerning fire mitigation, a memo was shared with the residents of Sapelo with that detailed response. And we have created and shared a Sapelo Island Heritage Authority landing page on the DNR website as a way of sharing notices and information about upcoming meetings. This included an agenda, the meeting location, and information for those willing to call in or listen online. We believe that this landing page on our website will continue to be a means and a mode for communication and a clearinghouse so that everyone has the opportunity to share their ideas, concerns, issues at any given point in time. I'll be the first to tell you, there's still work to do with this. I hope to see it as a means of moving forward with any system, with anything dealing with technology. And then especially when you're looking at communication, always a challenge to work through the kinks so that we can communicate together more effectively and efficiently. So now, before we open it up to you, and we are here to hear from you, again, we wanted to provide these updates so that you know the work that we're doing. But before we open that up, I wanted to ask Mr. Ron if you would like to share any comments.
Good morning, everybody. Last Friday, we had a meeting with a lot of the organizations of the Emmett community people, non-organization, sidecars, solo, One organization wasn't able to meet one of the person, talking the foundation and also as well. It was a good meeting. We was able to get everybody together to discuss issues that pertain to the Hawken community. And in that meeting, I think we got a lot done. We were very productive about it. There were some questions that was brought up at the meeting that I wanted to share, yes, with everybody on what was asked of the board. And some of these questions were, two properties on Hall Road, lot 1819, which was discussed too as well, is approximately about 4.5 acres of land. And some of those were asked about, questions were asked whether, why were the two lots the only lots offered? And response were, lots 1819 were recommended by the Department of Natural Resources, DNR, for several reasons. Both lots were found in uplands areas and are planned to be mulched coming weeks, which is done. Both lots are accessed from the Hall Road and have existing easements. These lots were also part of the initial discussions with the residents. No additional lots were recommended during the Hawken Heritage Authority meeting. Two, the two properties available lease, are the two properties available lease through the state DNR Heritage Authority. Response were at July meeting, the authority voted unanimously to give DNR the authority to enter into agreement for the use of lots 1819 for the purpose of preserving the cultural heritage, educational space, and agricultural Sapelo. 3, is the initiative truly for the preservation of the cultural heritage, or is it for anyone who owns land to be able to bid on property? Interest parties will complete an application through the competitive process through DNR as outlined in its recommendation. The use of the land must be for the purpose of preserving the cultural heritage, educational space, and agricultural of Sapelo Island. The application vetting process will be used to ensure that the lands are being utilized in the manner as prescribed by the Heritage Authority. 4, what is the Heritage Authority looking to gain and what are they looking to preserve? Again, a recommendation was made and adopted by the Heritage Authority to allow specific heritage land to use for these purposes and based on information present in the concern plan, concept plan, feedback, DNR, or received the last 2 Sapelo Island community meeting recommendation. From DNR staff, the design lots could be used for the purpose of preserving cultural heritage, educational space, and agricultural of Sapelo. Is a longer lease term available? Response: there isn't enough time with the 2 to 3 years based upon the lease land given previous to other landowners. It is 60 years plus, maybe even 99 years in option. That's what was asked from us. The Heritage Authority response was, the Heritage Authority voted to allow the 2 to 3 years agreement for the use of the land to change the length of the rental agreement. The Heritage Authority, Sapelo Heritage Authority, Heritage Authorities will need to amend any agreements over 5 years, creates a presumption of the estate for the land which would need to be individually approved by the Sapelo Authority case by case basis. What about the availability to other heritage of property that is on higher land? It's much higher than lower property. Which was mentioned about 18X, 19X, all recommended by DNR staff because they are in an upland area and have easement are already in place for the whole both lots currently underground, going mulching once completed in lots will be more easily viewed, accessed. This recommendation on these lots were the only lots approved for the use by the Sapelo Heritage Authority. 6, what's available for long-term leasing option? At the time, the only leasing option approved by the Sapelo Heritage Authorities were the 2 to 3 years agreement. A was the multimedia center, which was 15 to 20,000 square foot, is what we were asking for. Size, cost, need money for this project to start must be within code and zoning regulations, which is what we have asking for as a group. What funding is available to get started, government budget, $3 million, liability, structure, materials, upkeep, maintenance, etc. of the Heritage Authority entitled have been funded. Is there a line item budget for the funded land? Currently answered. Currently, there is no budget requested for the land use agreement. Costs associated with the use of the land would be the responsibility of the successful applicant. 8, can the original site cost plan be revised according to the quality of people available, assist and support? Copy plan 1 and 2 for the cultural village of since 2002 to 2007. The site cost agreement was expired due to the lack of completion of feasibility study. 9, can the conglomerate group be established under one corporate group, one umbrella to create where everyone can work together, even and separate, entitled the opportunity to come together for the greater cause of the projects will exist through the conglomerate of the descendants and landowners. Such a group could submit an application if their proposed use meet the authorized purpose of the land, of the use of the land as set forth by the Sapelo Heritage Authority. Policies, procedures, and what does it look like? Who established these operations? At the July 17, 2024 meeting, the Heritage Authority voted unanimously to the DNR authorized to enter into a rental agreement for the Sapelo Heritage Authority land use. DNR will develop policies and procedures and establish an application process. Is the leasing of the tiny homes an option? If so, what are the policies and procedures to lease the properties for housing purposes? Can it be required that it is only the available option for descendants of the cultural heritage within the Hall County community? Response, per Heritage Authority, the purpose of the land use agreement must be preserved the cultural heritage, educational space, and all agriculture of Sapelo Island. It would be the applicants to demonstrate how a tiny home meets the authorized purpose of the rental agreement. Well, can a community land trust be created? Such a group could submit the application if they're proposed to use to meet the authorized purpose of the outline of the adopted recommendation by the Sapelo Heritage Authority. One more. Is there more Heritage Authority land available for leasing in the future? 25 acres that site cards agreed to use. Will that go back to the table to bring cultural village to fruition of? Can this also be available only for descendants of cultural heritage within the Hall County community? Lot 18X and 19X are the pilot lot projects for the rental agreements for the Heritage Authority land. Additional lots will need to be approved by the Heritage Authority, Sapelo Heritage Authority. Do we pay property taxes on this property? If the Heritage Authority doesn't, the renter would not be responsible for the property taxes as the agreement are not estate for years, but just rental agreement. And last one, 15. As far as what we are looking for, what are the policies and procedures that you are required? DNR will develop a policy and procedures for the land use agreement based on the recommendation adopted by the Sapelo Island Heritage Authority. Now, these were the questions that was asked at our meeting, and we all got together and came up with this to present to the DNR Heritage Authority, and they responded with these questions, the answers right here. So, are there any questions?
Commissioner, could we get a copy of the questions and the responses? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharon. I will say that, you are well represented on the Heritage Authority. I really appreciate Mr. Ron and Ms. Francine for, the conversations that we have had. We've met a time or two. And again, you're very well represented on the authority. We are moving into the public comment portion of the meeting, and there are a lot of people here this morning. So to begin with, we want to limit comment to 3 minutes. And then, of course, as time permits, want to circle back for another 3 minutes, we can do that. Everyone that wants to speak this morning gets that opportunity. And then we do have the online chat feature available, and Brittany will help mitigate those questions as we move forward this morning. So at this time, again, this is your meeting, and I do want this to be a dialogue. I can't promise you that we can provide you an answer, sitting here, right off the cuff, but I will promise you that we will respond to your question. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to you. Hearing no questions, we'll adjourn.
Yeah. Stand up.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Rader. I am restoring Miss Viola Johnson's house at a very slow rate, but anyway, grew up on the island. Father was director of Marine Institute for 10 years, 61, 71. And I'm a city planner. So my goal, of course, is to protect what everyone loves, and it's the heritage of the community. And I wanted to just ask at you, since we've heard from Ms. Sharon Grosvenor, and really to me, the overarching policy and procedures is the Sapelo Island Heritage Authority. So I'm very glad that two commissioners here, Mr. Poole and I'm sorry. Hey, thank you, I'm sorry. Have come because there's a lot of things ongoing with the rezoning issues, et cetera. I'm glad you're here to really kind of help pull all this together, because it seems to be in total odds with what McIntosh County commissioners are zoning with the Heritage Authority and their goals, and with DNR, because DNR is responsible for all the services and infrastructure. And here you are going to have twice as large a house. How are you going to have fire trucks that can accommodate 2-story buildings, et cetera, ladder trucks, all these various things, and more people to have emergency services, whatever it might be. So I really would like to address how y'all feel about what is the overarching mission or the overarching goal. How can we better work together with DNR? I mean, with McIntosh County making these decisions for a few residents that want. Thank you.
So what I can't do is speak for McIntosh County here, but I can tell you that McIntosh County has always had, continues to have a good partnership with the department, communicate well together. The county they operate separately from the Department of Natural Resources. So again, just what I can say is the constant communication, whatever the county decides, and all of you are residents of the county, whatever you decide, again, we will do our best as a department to accommodate on the island.
I think that list that Sharon was reading out was a list of questions that each one of the community had for the heritage. And I don't think none of those questions on that list is answered. This was what we were expecting to get answers to those questions.
I mean, I'm happy to go back through them. There is a response to every question. Okay.
Well, we met, last time we met, we talked, different people talk about using land, heritage authority land in the community to do different things to create income on the island. And we never answered about will we be able to do that, and talk about land lease stuff, it was only like a 2-year lease. And we were wondering, like, why was only a 2-year lease on land? We've known pieces of land got 60-year lease. Here's story land in the community. So, like, here's the story to really try to help the people in the community stay in the community, we kind of walk quick and stuff like that.
Well, I would comment and say that, yes, I mean, I think this is a good faith step, start a pilot program so that the community can start using some of that property. Again, the terms of the lease get much more complicated the longer they get, particularly over 5 years. I don't have the details as I sit here before you of what the competitive process looks like at this point in time. We're developing that. We, as late as this morning, still talking about how long it'll take to get this process up and running so that we can get that out there. Hopefully we have something by the first of the year. Again, this is kind of a new process for the department. The Heritage Authority only granted us the ability to enter into the leases with those 2 lots and for only 2 to 3 years.
How come they're gonna be turned over to DNR, then possibly lease to somebody else, why not directly from the Heritage Authority to an individual?
But it's all about the administration of the Heritage Authority. Again, you know, this meeting that we had this past July, first meeting we've had since 2021. By giving it to DNR, we're able to deal with it today and move forward with those 2 lots. If you wanted to deal directly, and we felt that was the most efficient thing for you. If you wanted to deal directly with the Heritage Authority, which was an option. You know, I don't know when the next meeting would be held, to be able to approve the process and then to be able to approve the bids.
That was an option.
It's an option, but again, do you want to take the chance of having to get your concept plan approved maybe once every year, 2 years, 3 years? So this is, in my mind, much more efficient to be able to deal directly with the department daily.
Well, we did concept plan, so you go ahead.
You did a concept plan, and that's why this recommendation was made based off of that concept plan.
The Heritage Authority has examples of having those kind of relationships and dealings from as far back as the early 2000s, directly with the descendants. Why aren't you looking at that history and learning from that so you can implement such a plan now instead of going through DNR?
Again, nothing is different by going through DNR and dealing directly with the Heritage Authority. It helps you to be able to have this administrative process put in place much more efficiently.
We think the cultural protection under the Heritage Authority and which it was originally designed is to protect the culture. And we think going through DNR has a unsure security that we don't quite understand. We wish we could continue to have conversations with the Heritage Authority and more meetings with Ms. Grosvenor and her representation of us. But I think it's kind of premature to go directly to DNR. Because
But if I'm hearing, or we can make sure that everyone is heard, but if I'm hearing that, and speaking as one member of the Heritage Authority, that's something we can certainly look at. Again, we're looking at trying to make it more efficient for you, so that we don't have to wait for the next Heritage Authority meeting. If that's something you want to do as a community, I'm good with it. Again,
Basically, what we're trying to do as far as myself and Franny, we want to meet more with the organizations and try to come to some kind of agreement that we often try to work. And as we were talking about in our last meeting last Friday about the multimedia center, and that was one project. We're trying to get like 2 or 3 projects on the footing to get this situation resolved. So we can try to bring the cultural, activities that we need, we talked about in our meeting. Agricultural, education, lodging for people to come and everything else. I mean, it's just so much things that we want to do. But the simple fact of the matter is trying to meet each other, and it was difficult. It was a little difficult task, but we all working to try to get this done. So it's going to be a lot more meetings with the community people and all the organizations. And then then you can come back with the Heritage Authority and discuss those and see what we can do.
I think it'd be more beneficial for us to work directly with Heritage Authority and DNR. You know, DNR ain't well trusted in the community. You know, just like the county ain't real trusted in the community. I mean, you know, just putting it out there that you wanna have a meeting and we need it, you know, because I knew of the meeting secondhand, but I wasn't personally saw and told about the meeting myself from nobody else had been told. So,
The only thing I would say is no administration for the Heritage Authority. So I can put it back to the Heritage Authority if that's what I'm hearing. Well, that they have 0 administrative support.
Well, and that,
So who's developing the process? Think about the timeline to go through that. But I'm listening and I take your comments very seriously. I take them back.
well, what I was gonna add is, okay, when we're thinking about the authority and, there's some, things I'm reading in the code about, our community is the last of its kind in the state of Georgia. It's important to citizens of the state of Georgia that this community reflects the past culture of the state, preserved for the benefit of the present and future generations. So we're talking about an entity that has been in existence for 41 years. But I think there are some significant questions, like when he's talking about, DNR is not very trusted in the community. Why can't we go through the authority? But the authority, has it ever really been funded? Like, you've got the appropriations for the mulching, so what we need is, for this vehicle to actually be funded so that it can have staff. So that we can deal, directly with the authority. And I think where it gets, even more problematic is, of course, the authority is about, preserving the culture, preserving the history, preserving the heritage. But then we're also inside of a county, that is rezoning us and doing things that will literally push out that very culture. And then I think where it gets more complicated when we're talking about trust is that, we as community members see, the state officials with the county officials, maybe not in their official capacity, but they're all spending time together, right? So all of that is what we see, and we're the ones that are really getting, more than, adversely impacted, by all of this. I mean, Commissioner, our last meeting was in the community center. We can't have a meeting in the community center because the county shuts it down, creates an RFP to turn it into a restaurant, and now it's quote unquote a bar and grill. That was a public space. So we're sitting in this space because we no longer have a public space because that space was literally taken from us. So we're fighting, about that too. And I think, there's just so many different things when you were mentioning the infrastructure updates. Well, right now the county is doing things that would, adversely impact the infrastructure on the island. We know that we already have issues when it comes to water pressure and things like that, but people now want to build 3,000 square foot homes and 2 stories, and all these things just don't add up. And I think the other side of it too is thinking about the, amount of land that we're talking about in the time period. Like you said, you're thinking this, 2 to 3 years, but the other side of that is, what can be accomplished in such a short period of time. So I think that's something that we are gonna have to go back to the table about, because there's just not much. I think that's just not enough time. And that's something that we all agreed on, that we discussed and we talked about. So I think that's a part of it too. And just thinking about, the rest of the land that's in the authority, how do we, include that in a way that it feels like we're more serious about the preservation of the culture, the preservation of the people. I think, you know, sometimes the irony is that we're surrounded by a reserve, but yet the agencies just aren't doing enough to help actually preserve the people and preserve the communities. I think we may be the only community that's sitting inside of a reserve surrounded by state land like this. So, you know, I just think there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Meetings like this can't just be once a year or twice a year. We're gonna have to, you know, really have dialogue and conversations if we're serious about the preservation of the community and the mission that's supposed to be of this entity, this call, the Heritage Authority, because, you know, we are a community that is literally under duress. You know, with all of these other policies that are coming from the county, and you say, you know, the county and the state are good partners. Well, you know, one partner is not doing the right thing. And it is adversely impacting the community. And so we gotta find a way, I believe, that the authority can somehow, you know, help to change that, you know, help to actually protect these spaces. And I'm not, you know, talking about the environment, because I believe that, you know, there's so much, you know, research that goes on here. And what people don't realize, and I always say that, you know, when the endangerment of the land and of the space is when the people get displaced. Because the people who are the descendants that are here aren't the people that are abusing these spaces and abusing these lands, because we're connected to the land. You know, it is precious to us. To the people that it's not precious to, they don't care about building in the marsh and putting up docks and doing all of these things. Those are the things that we do. So how do we, you know, as a community together, working together, you know, get this entity, the authority, to live up to what it was envisioned to be, I guess is what I'm saying.
I appreciate your comment.
I want to make a couple of things clear. We're talking about the Sapelo Island Heritage Authority. Bill Hodges has a 60-year lease here. Why can't each one of our family members that sent in to you after the lawsuit, in the discussion of what we can do with the land, but yet in some form of disparate treatment, you want to turn it over to DNR for us claiming administrative duty? Where's your administrative duty? If we look at Lewis and Beverly Lewis, care of. See, what's going on right now? You came and introduced this county commission like they mean something to us. They are slaying us. If you take this 3,000 square foot and it actually passes, where they have now sued to stop the Board of Elections, where the county is now sued to stop what we know as the zoning change, went straight to the probate court and sued them. This county commission, as you say, you all are getting along so well, is a destruction. But if we think about what it's doing, we know you're trying to raise our taxes. I just left the island with 16 black people left and 523 white residents that have taken over not just their dirt, but their cemetery. So we know your plan. We know that there's a conspiracy and a scheme to deprive and eradicate us. So the question then becomes, if you're a preservation network, what have you done to preserve us? Nothing. Zero. This county commission that we have down here is one of the most destructive white supremacist organizations I've ever run into in 15 years of advocate work. If you talk about our new neighbors, when I used to move into a new neighborhood, some of the new neighbors would come and give me baskets of food and welcome us to the neighborhood. These new neighbors are trying to figure out how to outbuild, overbuild, destroy what we know as cultural heritage. You're changing the names of our roads.
The largest house built on this island was built by Dennis Coleman. And they just changed Old Field Road as the county to Coleman Lane. Been Old Field Road for 100 years. When you say 100 years, I mean, what is really going on that you think we're gonna fall for this? So we know in the account and audit department that your attorney won't answer the true questions to my Open Records Act. We saw how you're giving state bonds away to private entities and individuals. We're calling for the Attorney General to do an inquest on the Sapelo Island Heritage Authority. Now, as trustee, that's what you know, as trustee, you call it board members or whatever, and try to hide and mask, you're trustee. But because there is a cavalcade on this island and you have done nothing to participate on behalf of the descendants. Well, our question then becomes, what do you decide to change in your methodology? Or even in your structure of what you're calling this administrative duty? What is the administrative duty when you did it for all the others who call it care of? We understand what the county commission is doing. They said it point blank. First, you'll never be who your ancestors were. We heard that in open meeting. Then the county commission is retaliating against us because they got kicked out of Superior Courthouse because they violated the Open Meetings Act. You see, this county commission that you came in and outed them is, I'm saying, on the lowest level of decency, which should be a human trait, they have none. So in order for me to understand why you would collaborate and tout them as if you're a partner of theirs, well, we have to hold you in the same low esteem, understanding that you too are collaborating and begin to deprive and dismantle who we are. Why wouldn't the new neighbors come in here and say to you, well, we agree with the descendants, we're not gonna build too high because we don't wanna run them off on a tax base. And we're gonna try to figure out how to be good neighbors, not just new neighbors. But then you have the aggression that's happening around here. Nobody's talking about it. But either university employees trying to bring people off the road, working with descendants, always causing trouble. Where we sent 9 different communications about university employees. I'm just finding everything that you're doing as a shield for darkness. And I believe you should change your structure and your operation. You won't even finish the settlement, much less the county finishing a federal settlement violating the orders of a federal judge. I don't think you should come in here and talk evil.
Next comment. Brittany?
We have, from Pamela Flores would like to submit a request for the SIHA board to establish a working group to work alongside DNR to manage the SIHA lots as a community-driven approach. Working group can be tasked with direct input into this new process. In addition, the SIHA board would have to add an operation budget for the SIHA working group for community members from the Georgia General Assembly. The SIHA working group would be the administrative arm of this process.
Very good comment.
I worked out like, about 4 or 5 years ago, I said to the character going, you know, and a big shop. And y'all supposed to get contacted me, and I haven't heard anything yet.
I'm not sure about the letter. I'm sure it made it to us, it's on file, and I can look for that. I'll give you.
So we talked about it in the last meeting, y'all will be all the contact, and I haven't heard it yet. It's been about 4 or 5 years now. Now we've got 26.
Again, the 2 lots that are going to be offered was coming from the comments from me speaking to you last year. That's certainly an option on these 2 lots that we're talking about. Is there opportunity for the other lots to be used? Yes. Yes, in the future, there are other lots that could be used.
I would like to ask too, what are the possibilities of us having
these more of the Heritage Authority meetings here, you know, in the community. I think that is challenging, obviously, when they're up in Atlanta. And the authority is about this specific space. So I think that if those meetings could be here, in this space, it would be, you know, it would be much better, but I think it would also kind of lend to wanting to work more alongside the community and the descendants.
I can certainly take that back and have that discussion for the next meetings. I mean, it is challenging, again, they're 4 members. But it makes it difficult. Five
Is this an annual meeting?
today,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, why can't we have multiple meetings during the year? Because it looks like the number of questions that's come up warrants that we have more conversation with you. And I also would like plan to speak to Ms. Grosvenor directly about our representation on the Heritage Authority being more frequent.
Again, we can see if the group can have more meetings. And you've got to know that it's difficult to get everyone together at any given time. We can see if we can come to Sapelo Island for the next meeting. I can't commit to that. Again, I'm a member of the Heritage Authority. But I can say we could have more meetings with DNR. But what I'm hearing is all Heritage Authority issues.
I'd like to know if, all of you are here representing a different department. Is there some, printout or some way that we can have a list of names and a way of communicating to these people? And, also, giving us a printout of what your position is, in this community? You know, and especially, in a very, I'm asking this so that we can get this, not just, I know you can't do it today, but in a timely manner, you know, to the residents here and anyone else who wants to. I know we can all go, a lot of us are not that savvy, you know, on the internet, but, you know, through, our representative, so that she can disseminate to all of us people, you know, here, who you are, what you represent to us, and how we can communicate to you directly.
Yes, ma'am, and the list at the back, if you left your email address, we'll reach out to you. And then we'll make sure that it maybe if you don't have email, we'll ask Francine and Ron to make sure that it gets out to everyone. Yeah,
I appreciate it.
yeah.
How do you become a board member on the Heritage Authority?
So you're appointed.
You're appointed.
I just want to say something. I came back to the island in February to stay with my mom. And I've been working on what's called, well, I'm a writer, so I like to write. So I've been working on the epistle to the Sapelonians. And the subtopic will beware of the takeover spirit. So I based that on First Kings chapter 21. There was the most wicked king in Israel history by the name of Ahab. Ahab wanted neighbors vineyard. And neighbors said, I'm not gonna sell you my vineyard because I inherited it from my ancestors. And so when Ahab heard that, he went home grieved in his spirits. And he talked to his wife Jezebel. And they conjured up a scheme to get neighbors at a certain place and have him say something. And they wanted to ridicule him for saying what he said about protecting what he inherited. So they had some scoundrels to hear that, and they ended up killing Nate for taking up for what his grandfather and his ancestors left to him. So as I came back to Sapelo in February, every afternoon about 7:30, I go to the Mars property that mom and dad had. They left basically for the kids, and I would meditate. And as I meditated, I thought about my dad who's in the Behavior Cemetery. And I was thinking all the time that Daddy would take me around the island on the north side of the island. We'd go through Rumland, we'd go to Chocolate, we'd go to High Point, we'd come around the Raccoon Bluff, we'd come back to the settlement of behavior of hometown community. And I knew how much my daddy was. I knew how much my granddaddy was. So when you see somebody selling the property, oh, man, you sell the property. And somebody of the elite stature gains the property. The problem as a descendant is you gain the property. Then you try to tell me they cannot do with the property I already said. What we need to do is enjoy the land, take care of the land, preserve the land, because I knew certain the land when they came to the end of the journey, that there was a new home to the communal service and we got to get together. Me being a poor educator on the school board of 5 million. You remember me was 3 votes. And you got 3 votes, we will care for the 2 votes because we got 3 votes. But this morning, what are we really voting on? Who are we really trying to protect? What's the outcome of what we're doing right now? Where do we go from here? What's the next step? Who are we trying to preserve? Who are we trying to protect? I want my son what I'm doing. So let me give the answer what I'm doing. You gotta talk freeze. You say property taxes are frozen right now. What happens when the freeze is lifted? What happens if the taxes go up to $4,000 and $5,000? How many of us can really afford that on fixed income? Let's think about what we're doing. Let's love each other. Not go behind the closed door and frown, and then come up with plots and schemes to take away what my ancestors left. Listen, they didn't have an education. They didn't have money, but they did have money. And the least we can do is take care of what they left for us. Thank you.
I just want to follow up, and give you a visual, because I said I grew up here, came here in 1961. And it was a whole different place, and I'd probably be the only white person in one of these meetings, and I love them, thank you. That brings me home, when I remember going to church, we would go to church at, not Raccoon Bluff, but at the, first back, yeah, Ronisford was Santa. So I just want to say, this is the heritage y'all have no idea what we've lost so far. I cry, I have tears about people who have gone on before us, Glasgow, Bailey, so many Gronister, so many others. And so point is, if this was the Ridge, I don't think we'd be talking about all this right now. Okay, the Ridge, oh, we gotta preserve those houses, man. I mean, that road through there, look at those big white houses, the big houses there. Why not make that your tax base for Macocota County? Have them tear all those houses down and rebuild, make them as big and fancy and all that. Nobody wants that here. At least the people I know of that grew up here, they can afford it. We never had a private dot. You kidding me? My father was an oceanographer. He didn't need a private dot. So we got to stop all this nonsense if we think this is Sea Island or St. Simon's. It's not. Okay, thank you.
First lawsuit, Raccoon Bluff, it was with the state of Georgia, in the state law, in the state court. So we're now looking at 33 1/3 acres for the judge and the special map, we can now do the full title research, so we can figure out the lies to dismantle. It's not this South Island Heritage Authority, but the state of Georgia and DNR. If the South Island Heritage Authority is claiming 180 acres, and they just got 1.5 acres in Raccoon Bluff, and you're offering us 4.56 acres, that sounds like no kind of preservation sense to me. Give up the 80 acres in the 100. Don't lease it to us, turn it over to our land sale. Sycar's been working on the land trust for a number of years, and I know Sycar is ready to put the land trust into implementation. So what the 4.56 acres says to me is that you're trying to test us to see what we can do. How you gonna test us to see what we can do when we've been on this island for 236 years? If we wasn't here, and only through the grace of God, are we not the fucking same song in the devil, but their idea is to work that way. And if you understand white supremacy, we're in the middle of it. The problem becomes, how do you defeat the economics of the state as the poor people of Sapelo Island? Poor, not poor. We just don't have the same economics that our new neighbors tend to have. We don't have the same influence that our new neighbors tend to have. We're not going to just go pick up the county commissioner and expect him to be all right on this island and think you can just walk around here freely while you're trying to cut our throat. It doesn't make sense that you're sitting up here putting on this charade, and I ask the question, what is the Sapelo Island American Authority is nothing but a land bank. Let's be clear, they don't control nothing else over here, but the land that they have stolen from us. You can look at it any way you want, but because Mr. Banks just said, it's 5 members on the board, 2 of our people, they don't have to count. Because they have a full quorum when the other 3 vote. Now, we're glad our family members are on this board. At least they can keep an eye out. But how are you trading bonds and land and real estate actions illegally? It's because we're not calling them on it.
Y'all, I just want to say that, you know, sitting in this meeting, listening to all this. We live permanently every day on this hour. We are 7 generation. That's my daughter sitting over there. And listening to all of this stuff happening, but this lying and this and that and whatnot. You know what we need to do? Like Pastor Banks said, yo, we need to pray, work together in unity and love, truth and love. That's what we all need to come together in this community. This land was held when our ancestors was here, and it's still here. And we just need to just pray about all of this going on. And black, white, pink, blue, or whatever. Y'all, let's work together. Even they are one of God's children. Let's come together in unity and love and work together on this island and this community. You know, you are a child of God, all of y'all. Ranting and wrenching and going on, but if y'all don't stop, God will send a stone and wash this whole island out and a new nation. This is what this is really all about. Let's work together, black and white, whoever in here, who comes to this island. They are our brother and sister. We need to stop. And if we can work together as one, this small island, if we can work together as one, we can accomplish the world. We can accomplish the world. I've been through a lot, and I seem to tell nobody. And this is what we need on this island. And I thank y'all. But y'all, let's work together in unity and love. Just one little small island. These people, white, black, pink, and blue. Y'all, let's come together as one in this community. And that's what I would love to see. Ain't nothing too hard for God. You can have all the money, all the jewelry in the world, but on the end, maybe in behavior of some cemetery. And God wants us to work together. It's just glad to see all of this. What raging? I See all these people be riding that boat back and forth. Y'all, good morning, good evening. This is what God wants for us. I don't care what position or whatever nobody have. We have to work together as one in this community. We all can say, God, forgive me for the things that I have did. But in the end of the day, let's love our brother and our sister, and I'm through with it.
And thank you, Ms. Lula. Ms. Lula is like a mother to me, and I mean, and she's speaking truth, and I was, just thinking about, what are some other things that the authority could do? I mean, there are legislative measures that could be taken to, when we're talking about property taxes, when we're talking about, protecting the historic spaces if we truly care about them, and, the Heritage Authority can, push or support, those measures, like, the one that we were, when we were trying to make the changes, within the authority, just a year or so back. And, and a lot of this, I'm still learning. Once I started working with 100 Miles and learning about all these regulatory, things and policies and everything else, and I also work with a land use organization, and just, I think about the things that we still could have. I work a lot with Dr. Chandler. I'm on his board, and he came over here, and we were gonna, actually have healthcare on the island, something we haven't had in years. And then all of a sudden, the county does this, and you got that over there, that's sitting on top of this public space. I mean, that isn't what people do who care about people and care about culture and care about community, because no matter where other people have come from, we're all here now. We're all in the same space now. So we need, all of our neighbors to think of us as neighbors and as family. And I don't think other people would do that to their family members. I don't think people would, go to Ulonia and take away a community center and say, well, government uses now a bar and grill. That impacts us. When I was little, I spent plenty of time in that center. There was my grandmother, with Miss Lula, with a lot of folks. That is about the history. That is about the culture. So I think, even legislatively, if there are some measures that, we as a community are working on, the authority may be able to play a role, in supporting that, just like the authority may be able, I think certainly to play a role in an appropriations or a line item, to say, funding, for this mechanism, because the truth of it is that, it is kind of a land bank. It has not functioned. We do not know what it can do, because it just hasn't had that opportunity at all. And in a sense, it's almost like it was set up to fail. So I think in order for us to especially move forward, you're gonna have to do things that you haven't done before. You're gonna have to be willing to do that. And that's what we're looking at. But that's okay. We make a mistake, we acknowledge it, we keep moving forward, but and then there are other authorities that are throughout the state, and I think about, how they have, funding. So this is the only one I've ever seen that's been in existence this long. It's just kind of sitting. So we need to have more of these meetings. They can't just be, once a year. And as well as what Ms. Lula is saying, we all need to have more meetings here in this space. We need our county commissioners to really, 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 truly understand, the damage that, they're doing to the community. We need these newer neighbors and non-descendant neighbors to really, really understand. I remember what St. Simon's used to look like when I was little. My father was from there. I remember what the Fusky used to look like. And that's the direction that all of this is going in. But, this board, this commission, this entity, can play a role in pushing back against that and stopping that and getting, the partners to actually behave in a way that is not destructive you know, to the community, not destructive to the space. Look, I love people, you know, like my brother, my sister, just like anyone else. You know, up until the point that you're doing something that is going to, you know, harm me or harm my family or harm our culture or harm the spaces that we're in. And what people don't think about is when they do damage, they're damaging themselves too. Right? They don't think about that. Like the university may not quote unquote, you know, be speaking in any way or advocating. But for every space, you know, where somebody is trying to, you know, build or develop, you know, that's less for them to be able to do their work, to be able to, you know, actually conserve or preserve when we're talking about, you know, natural wildlife. But then that is also connected to the culture. And I think sometimes that's what people don't understand is people like Mr. Ronster or, you know, Mr. Bailey or Mr. Ben Hall, who was on the authority for years. You know, when those folks are getting displaced, you're not only losing your culture and your history, you're actually losing the space.
I think the key to what you just said is the we. I mean, it's got to be DNR, it's got to be the heritage authority, it's got to be the community, it's got to be the county. It is the we, and productive conversations are the key to that. It's getting to a space where we can all work together. But that takes everyone to come together and have those conversations.
And we circle back to these.
Yeah.
To clarify that more, because I think a lot of people are understanding, that looking around those rooms, there's more than citizen here. So in the county being here, I think it's very disrespectful that they are here. They've been very eager to it, they are colonizers, and they can't control it, they destroy it. That's their effort right now. And they were told, we thought he was up at one point, but turned out to be not very supportive of that. So I don't feel comfortable with the commission being in here. And I don't feel comfortable with y'all saying y'all friends with the commissioners, y'all work with the commissioners. Also, we know that some property owners work closely with the commissioners, so part of the rezoning. We also know some property owners work closely with the Harris County Board and responsible for appointing people to the Harris County Board for the benefit of themselves. So leasing this property, who should eligible? Is this descendants property, the people descendants, or any property owner? But when you first spoke, you just said property owners or residents. You said nothing about descendants. And I think quite a few people in here are in here for this property also that's not descendants. That's going further the post gentrification that's happening on South Road. So is this property clearly for descendants? Or is property anybody owns property or residents of South? Because a lot of people in this room don't have all best interests. They're a part of the stakeholder. I'm a business owner on South. Every time I speak up, I lose customers, lose something. But this is my home. And I see it happen. And we don't have that trust of our kind. We don't have the trust of the Harris County Board. History has showed us that. So what is this lease about and who's eligible for it?
First of all, we're gonna kind of have to back up and figure out who do we want to kind of administer this lease. I heard from a couple of you this morning that you want it to be the Heritage Authority. If that's truly the overwhelming majority of the thoughts and the wishes, then we can back up and let it be the Heritage Authority. I know, and many of you are very familiar with some proposed legislation in the past. Descendants can be hard to define in law. So that's what we're working off of. Residents, I think it's much easier to define to move forward with the lease. But again, I can tell you that there's nothing on paper at this time to help us with that. We wanted to get to this meeting to hear your concerns. So as we move forward, I believe this is Walter, not the Heritage Authority Board. Walter believes that residence is an easier term to define in law versus descendants.
It's easier, but it's not helped out. We fought a case last year about we want to change the wording, as you know. About counting in meetings,
tell us how we had no more heritage. After naming my mother and other people would be very, very disrespectful. Like they're waiting to sit around for those who die, or they can take over. So that word resident is not gonna help. That word resident is not gonna that hold on to the culture, using land for culture, and everything. This happens all along the coast of various places where non-African American people, they do practice these culture before they can be able to some of these things. So that's not gonna protect us. They just land be used for culture events or et cetera. That's not gonna protect us, but they can still come there and say, oh, we doing Baptist now. So this is part of culture. So we are also. So that word residence is not gonna protect us. As you see, so the support of the county and the non-descendants, this is not about we gonna win. This feels another setup. Because they have to back up. They have people within the county, they have people within the heritage code, they have people within the government office. We don't have those connections. So just so that we may lose more land, more control. So I encourage you to change that. I know it's gonna offend a lot of people, but y'all offending us. So don't be afraid of offending other people because y'all want to change the word to the residents from residents to descendants. We want descendants for our protection. Heritage started for our protection. So don't be afraid that you're gonna offend some people. Y'all offended us for years.
Well, it's not, again, I don't get to choose, I've got to be able to defend the term. And again, if we can get to a definition of descendant in law, I'm fine with that.
Well, we had that argument and our state representatives, they say the same thing. So I hear the same thing actually from the county up to the state level, saying that there's no wording, there's no wording. And will that happen? We don't know. So you think the same thing, that's no answer. I know you don't have an answer, that's no answer. And you think our state representative is gonna push that, change that? I don't think so.
Well, and keep in mind that, you know, this is the bill that we were working on, that legislation. That, you know, it was really this close. And that is something that, you know, he's right. That is something I think that you can actually help with. So that is exactly what we were talking about. The fact that it's so broad, we could be sitting here and all of a sudden, you know, the authority, most of the land be leased to people who aren't descendants. And the whole mission or the reason it was created, it says, was for the preservation of the Black community, preservation of Black land, preservation of, you know, Gullah Geechee, you know, heritage. So to me, you know, and that's why you hear people saying, well, we want the authority to directly work on this rather than DNR, a state entity, because once you get into a state entity can't go, well, we're just gonna work with justice, and you could, but then you're probably gonna get sued by a lot of people who are trying to do some of this other stuff that they're doing. You know, so I think there is the power to do exactly what Maurice is talking about. You just have to have the will to do it.
And I'm a good representative of what you guys were talking about. I am a descendant of Sapelo Island. I'm also a taxpayer of Sapelo Island, a landowner on Sapelo Island. I am not a resident, not yet. So you guys are excluding me when you only talk about the residents and what you all want to do. And what I don't understand is, what is you all's agenda? What is DNR? I see what the county's agenda is. And it just seems like you guys exist, but there's no, you don't have any administration to work on some of the things that the community wants to see happen to assist with the preservation of the culture. And so my question here today is to find out what is you all's ultimate decision besides saying preservation, the agriculture and the education, because what's behind that? I need specifics, because I'm sitting here and I'm listening to it and I'm not getting that answer.
And again, it's very complex because I sit here at the DNR convention and I sit here as a Sapelo Highland Heritage Authority board. What does DNR do? We do what we're bound by law to do out. We can't do less, and we can't do more than what we're bound by the law to do.
But that's DNR. So then what, the Sapelo Heritage Authority?
Exactly what you have talked about, and it's laid out in the definitions that Jazz laid out.
But what are the examples of you guys actually doing that? Because from what I understand, you guys have been in existence for over 20 years. So what's the example of you all actually doing that?
It is the preservation of some of the land that they hold, and again, the spirit of this lease was to start a pilot program. Be able to give that property back to residents, descendants, or whoever, when that's decided. To be able to use that property again for the intended purposes from the conceptual plan that was presented to the board.
Right.
So that happened 20 years ago. So 20 years ago, that was supposed to be done. After 20 years, it wasn't done yet.
20 years ago, what?
So the South Carolina Heritage Authority formed 20 years ago for that purpose. Here we are now, 20 years later, ain't nothing done yet. Last year, basically, you're saying now, same thing I heard last year. And I hope next year ain't the same thing I hear again. It's like feeding us on year after year, year after year.
That's one thing I want to say to people. I listened to the native already say something very, that needs to have attention to. Because look at the word in resident versus senator. And I would say, how do we put this takeover spirit in remission? Another thing I want to say is, as I told the faculty a few weeks ago, I said, what we need to get together is an eradication and elimination of hidden agendas. Okay, I'll say that again. We need an eradication and elimination of hidden agenda. And that's the only way we're gonna save Sapelo. Because if we leave it as residents, we already know what the outcome's gonna be.
And we already know who the people is that cause the problem. You know, like some of y'all, their email is, or you go, and somebody in the same room, and my mom tried to run them over the place. Everybody in you know my mom ain't that type of person. But what they do, go get in touch with Ted. And Ted get in touch with Fred. And that causes frustration between the DNR and the people in the community. Because Fred know my mom ain't that type of person. But when you got a person that's doing stuff like that, it's causing problems, issues, and become black and white and all kind of crazy stuff like that. Makes sense.
And on thing.
Y'all, you get it. Some of these Sapelo in place, you got a long way. And B, when I grew up on the town, everybody got together, like Carol, great and big. Man, we got together, we did this together, we did this together. And this is coming and causing problems. And it's always the people with the hidden agendas and the ones who's friends with the governor, to call up the commissioner and call up the head, stuff like that.
And I want to just say, like, I've been coming here since I was 7. Now I'm 16 years old, and I've yet to see any progress on this island at all. So I think that's just really frustrating for me as part of the younger generation. See you guys kind of sit up here and, talk about these things, and I, throughout the years, have yet to see anything happen. And then I also just kind of wanted to address what you said about, we be the people, and then commissioner, the county and DNR needs to come together. But what do we do when one of those entities don't want it to be we? What do we do when it's just I want to take over? Now I'm doing this, and this. As you can see, the county is doing something completely different than what we want to happen. So this is a question, what do we do when that happens? When it can't be we anymore?
The only way I can answer that is talk about our electoral process. You elect your representative. Nobody here has anything to do with the administration of the county. Nothing. We don't influence it. I don't vote in McIntosh County. I guess many of you do. I'm telling you, when it goes back to just something that seems as simple as defining what a descendant is, it's tough. Maurice, you remember, we tried, we got it there. Got close, and Jazz said it was there. But it takes that happening under the gold dome. The governor himself can't define what a resident is. It's 236 members of the Georgia General Assembly. Those are the people that write the law. We're bound to follow the law. We don't have an option.
But I think a part of that law, though, when you're talking about the Heritage Authority, is very clear and specific language. And, you know, part of the way that you can help is, you know, helping the governor to understand that. And I'm not saying that I don't know what his consensus is, you know, or not on this. You know, but when we're talking about, you know, this authority's task and mission, which is the preservation of the culture, the land, the people, is failing right now because of all these other things that are happening. So we've got to find a way to be better about this, and that's gonna be more conversations and more meetings, and I don't know when the next one we'll have like this, but we obviously have got to have more of this, and we've got to be talking about, you know, legislative policy and measures. I mean, we obviously do, like you're saying, well, you can't define descendant, well, we could define it. We could define it, and we can, and we're ready to do that. We're ready to do that when that bill almost went through. So these are things that we are actually really prepared for. We just need the support, you know, of this entity called the authority, which is tasked with that mission, something that DNR is not tasked with. You know, to be behind us, to, you know, work with us, you know, to recognize that, you know, of course, there's, you know, this land, everybody knows the history of the story, that this, a lot of this land was taken. We know this. We know what was going on with Reynolds during that period and during that time, and that there's not clear title, and there's all kinds of things going on when you get into the nuts and bolts of that. And we still need to have those conversations and talk about what the future looks like for that. But, you know, my hope is that we can come out of this and say, well, these are some specific things, you know, that the community wants, that we can do, that we can help with. You know, how can you help? Like you say, you don't, you know, administrate, you know, county policy, but there are obviously relationships that are there. So, you know, what can be done? Because the irony is that their policies, you know, can lead to the pushing out and definite eradication of the community. While we're ideally talking about policy through the authority that's supposed to be for the preservation of the community, you know, but that's just not what's happening. So we need this entity in the SIHA to really start to, you know, push these things that we are talking about, and that is something that we can work on right there. That is one thing.
My thing is, you say you're the Heritage Authority. The Heritage Authority is to preserve. How can you preserve? You don't have funding. You don't have any funding. You say you're doing this stuff, and you don't have funding or staff or anything else to implement any of the things that even any of us are talking about. That's only what you have to present to us. Couldn't it be one of these things throughout one of these meetings that you can take what you're learning and what you're hearing from us back to the governor or whoever you represent and say, these people say that if we want to be the Heritage Authority, because that word doesn't mean anything if you don't have anything to implement the policies and the procedures that you're saying that you want to do. Can't you take that back and use that or present it as something that will be a helpful part of what we need to get done here?
Certainly.
Because as it is right now, we're doing all of this talking, you're here, we appreciate you. But you can't do anything. You don't have any funding.
To my knowledge, last year was the first time that the Heritage Authority actually got a direct appropriation. And that was since
But it's 41 years, 41 years.
I
Some
understand.
money should have come, and out of all those years, wouldn't you think that somebody somewhere would have thought to put money in there to do something? Georgia, the state of Georgia has a uniqueness here. You have an island that is intact. You have a people that will work. Sure, we all have certain things, everybody here. There's different organizations here representing different things. But when it comes down to it, they all represent Sapelo, and they all care about Sapelo. they all will put in what they feel is necessary to preserve Sapelo. If a small community like this can do that, surely the state of Georgia can do something to complete and implement what is necessary to protect this one unit, this one island that is unique throughout this country. You should, you should be proud. Georgia should be able to be proud that you have this and it's still intact. You should talk that and present that to the country that you have that. That's a uniqueness that you can use.
Yeah.
I like to project, something here, I'm having deja vu with a lot of the conversations that happening here. Because believe it or not, I represent Sapelo Island Cultural and Revitalization Society. And we've had years of negotiation directly with the Heritage Authority discussing everything that's been mentioned here today. And we had a great relationship, and it was all the land that the Heritage Authority owned on this, and organic in particular. And I fully intend to work with Ms. Groveland and our representatives to share some of that history, which I think people like you, Commissioner, should reflect on it. And because there's a lot to be learned there as well, including our definition and how we consider ourselves, because that was all discussed with the banks of state lawyers and lawyers on our sides as well. And I think you need to realize that that exists, something called the land use plans that was agreed upon on everything we just discussed here. But I will be sharing that with you and the group. Back.
We got a couple of online.
So one is, how come the SIHA isn't mentioned as an attached agency in the Georgia 2024 budget report? And where can we find information about the funding process of SIHA?
And back. Budget came out a long time ago. Y'all recall, think, it passed through DNR, so that it'll be in the default budget, it's gonna pass through to the Sapelo Island.
And then the other question was from Ms. Flores, again, would like a formal answer if the working group process would be possible. And establishing a growing list today of all descendants only that would like to work on the working group, and if descendants can regulate a structure for how non-descendants interact with the working group, given there are current leases with non-descendants.
If I'm understanding that correctly, yes, the community can put a working group together. Obviously, don't trust DNR or Sapelo Island Heritage Authority to do it, but I can commit to you that if you put a working group together, you know, we don't want to be in charge of it, but we're happy to meet with you. We're happy to meet with your office. And nobody in this room has come to my office and found the door closed. So I commit to you that we will meet with you.
And what did you mean by she asked the question about the budget, about a path through? Could you just explain that?
The DNR as an agency has a budget, and then what's common is for pass-through money to be added to the budget. That's outside of the governor's recommended budget, and then it's put in there by the Senate or the House, put in there for a direct appropriation. In this case, it's a direct appropriation to the Heritage Authority for fire mitigation and then the flood control.
And how did that happen? Was that something that you spearheaded? Or?
I did.
Okay.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yes.
On the fire, I was told that, he did out. The job from he did out from the spoke, out the boat, then it came up that it was, get out, and now I hear that it's. Same company gonna do this, how come those jobs are not being bid out where anybody can build?
That's what we do. I mean, again, it was pretty significant funds, and we do have a statewide contract this already that we went through a bid process, have that available for the, you know, we're doing this stuff statewide. And there's a large vendor that work to do this type of work. If you got them on contract already, it's like a barge already, got a barge. So we're using that contract. You had to encumber those funds. Amended FY 24 passed. And we had to, again, it's March. We had to develop scope of work, try to even do that. It's been difficult, but luckily we have a contract. Go right to that vendor, go ahead and encumber those funds. They're in a PO now with that contractor. We'll allocate those based on work, approved statewide contract will be all out.
And the reason I ask, because I'm one of the ones who make it a firewide community. Very. Reports around to every different place. And I was told that it was, he's talking bill. That I was interested in bidding on it myself. Now I hear they talk about doing it. You know, of course, I would have bid them. And of course, there ain't no outside vendor you can get to know this hour better than me. You know, and that's why I wanted to talk to this, that's why, you know, myself.
I hear you. Bottom line, if we had to encumber money quickly, we had approved statewide already contractor, we can encumber those money. That's why we went like that.
How can I get on your list of who on contract?
When we, again, that contract, it was a statewide contract, wasn't just Sapelo Island. Contract, he do work there, all while I'm there, they are there.
Statewide contract.
But we can certainly put your name on the list and have it available when if we send out another bid, you're there. You will be notified if there's a bid like that put out.
We all know how the state works with the good old boys. It's goes here, goes there, come on. So I would want the opportunity to get on that list.
But we definitely can make that happen. And, again, you know, we don't have any, if we don't know contract, I mean, what like, it's a huge contract, is that. We pull in all of our land, what we're doing. It is a big one, but, we certainly will make sure it gets on there. You're notified, anything like this is pushed out to bid and
Ted, in terms of the mulching project, what is the future maintenance plan going to look like?
that's a great question. One that I was having yesterday with the staff. So, again, I think it's gonna be important that we, look at that, keep the understory down. Because the chemical application, from herbicide to that level. We talked about fire and, I get in there and I start getting uncomfortable. Mentioning the word fire and I'm seeing all the houses and everything else in there, so we're gonna have to probably use herbicide and mowing or something like that in the future. Make sure it doesn't just throw back up gallberry and all the other, the heavy fuses that were existing. So, we're committed to look at that and use best management practices we have available to us to keep that understory down.
I think they're probably better to use fire. But there is the herbicide inside. Mitigate but so big, most of that land. I don't know about 35, so you got enough stuff going on now. One side in front of you, it's already spread all over the same guy inside. They already saying the water line is contaminated now.
Well, I'd be committed from giving this responsibility on our behalf under my division to meet with the community and make sure y'all understand and have input into how we will manage that understory and control the future and make sure everybody's comfortable with those actions, you know, in the future.
All right, so we're hitting the 2 hour mark and we'll kind of start wrapping it up again, you know, my takeaway to you is that we can communicate. Happy to communicate with anyone. We will certainly see about the possibilities of a Heritage Authority meeting on the island. We'll certainly look at having more conversation with whatever group, maybe more meetings with us. I do benefit maybe in the future of having a DNR meeting versus a Sapelo Island Heritage Authority meeting, just for the sake of efficiency and time. But with that being said, I appreciate everyone taking their time. Dad, real quick.
Yeah, just one more thing. Is there any way when, I don't know, when, you know, people are, anything that impacts our waterways? Of course, you know, I know that it goes on like, you know, website, like somebody put in an application for a dock or anything like that. But, if there could be any way to more, directly inform, like community members and descendants, that would really be helpful. Because a lot of this stuff, honestly, I didn't know about till I started working at OHM, at 100 miles. So if that process could, you know, be facilitated a little bit better in some way, so people understand what's happening around them just a little bit better, that's all.
We can do that, and we do make a lot of effort to post that stuff on our website, so make sure that you subscribe to all of our websites, but also online as well, be in our webpage. Again, thank you for everyone that came out and taking your time. We do appreciate it. Again, these conversations need to be ongoing and continuous. I probably disagree with a couple of comments that nothing has been done in the past year. I think there's probably been as much done in the past year than it's been done in many, many years. And that's going to continue to try to make that happen. But with that being said, again, thank you for being here. I look forward to seeing you on Sapelo in the future.
Thank you.